Have you ever wondered why some survive when others break? Why some rise from the ashes of despair, while others are consumed by them? The world, in all its cruelty, strips away everything: comfort, safety, love. But still, some souls rise, not despite their suffering, but because of it. They discover something hidden deep within themselves, a force stronger than the pain, a light that even the darkest of prisons cannot snuff out. This is the paradox of the human spirit, the unspoken truth that defies all logic and reason. The suffering we endure does not have the power to destroy us, only to shape us. And in that shaping, something extraordinary can emerge. Viktor Frankl, who endured the unimaginable horrors of the Holocaust, discovered a secret that many are too afraid to confront. We are not bound by our circumstances. No matter the chains that bind us, no matter the horrors we endure, the ultimate freedom lies in one single, unassailable fact: the freedom to choose our response. Frankl's words echo through time. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. It is in this very challenge that we find the meaning of our lives, not in the fleeting pleasures or comforts of the world, but in our response to suffering. It is through the suffering that our deepest self is revealed, our purpose made clear, and our transcendence made possible. We are not defined by what is done to us, but by how we choose to rise in response. This choice, this sacred sovereignty of the soul, is something that no prison, no tyrant, no circumstance can take from us. And this is the lesson that Frankl, in his darkest hours, was able to grasp with a clarity that transcends time and place. The human spirit can be crushed, beaten, and broken, but it cannot be destroyed unless we allow it. For as long as there is breath in the body, there remains the power to choose not merely survival, but transcendence. The world may have stripped Frankl of everything: his home, his family, his dignity, but it could not strip him of his ability to find meaning in his suffering. This was his radical act of defiance. He chose not to be reduced to his circumstances. He chose to see beyond the walls of the concentration camp, beyond the brutality of his captors, and into the depths of the human soul. He found, as countless others have, that meaning is not something given to us. It is something we must seek out. We must choose it, even in the face of the worst the world has to offer. Do you not see? Meaning does not wait for us to be comfortable. It does not await the perfect circumstances or the absence of pain. Meaning is found in the fire, in the struggle, in the moments when the soul is pushed to the very edge of endurance. It is forged not in comfort, but in suffering. The freedom Frankl speaks of is not the freedom to escape suffering. It is the freedom to rise through it, to transcend it. Imagine, for a moment, being in the depths of despair, surrounded by nothing but brutality and darkness. How would you respond? Would you surrender? Would you allow the weight of the world to crush you into submission? Or would you, like Frankl, choose to find meaning even in the most harrowing of circumstances? This is the choice we all face. It is a choice that will determine not just the course of our lives, but the depth of our souls. And yet, it is in this very choice that we find our ultimate power. For the truth is, no prison can take away the freedom of choice. No force, no matter how tyrannical or oppressive, can bind the human spirit unless we choose to surrender it. It is not the external circumstances that define us, but our internal response to them. This is the freedom Frankl discovered in the darkness of Auschwitz, a freedom that cannot be stripped away, no matter how dire the situation. In that moment, Frankl understood something profound. The world may have taken everything from him, but it could not take his ability to choose his response. No matter how grim the situation, no matter how deep the suffering, there remained the possibility of meaning. And in that meaning, there remained the possibility of transcendence. When Frankl was imprisoned, stripped of his humanity, forced to endure the unspeakable horrors of a concentration camp, he came to understand a truth that few will ever fully grasp. The pain we endure is not a force that diminishes us, but one that invites us to reach into the deepest well of our being and find the strength we never knew we had. Suffering, he realized, is not something to be feared or avoided. It is an invitation to discover the depths of our soul and, in that discovery, to find meaning. The very essence of who we are is shaped by our response to suffering, and it is through that response that we become more than we were before. It is the paradox of existence. In the darkest moments, when the soul is pressed under the weight of despair, there lies an opportunity, a potential for transformation so profound that it can never be fully understood from the vantage of comfort. The human spirit, in its deepest agony, can still transcend, still rise, still find meaning. The question is not whether suffering will come, it is when it does, what will we do with it? In our modern world, we are often taught to fear suffering, to seek to avoid it at all costs. We are told that comfort is the highest goal, that pleasure should be our guiding force, and that happiness is our birthright. But this is a lie. Happiness is not something to be chased. It is something to be earned. And the only way to earn it is through the struggle, the sacrifice, and the determination to find meaning, even when the world tells us that none exists. When Frankl was in the camps, he was forced to confront the reality of human suffering in a way that most will never experience. But even in the face of unimaginable horror, he discovered a truth that resounds through the ages. Life can never be reduced to mere pleasure or pain. It is far more complex, far more nuanced, and far more beautiful than that. Life is the search for meaning, and the key to that meaning lies not in what happens to us, but in what we choose to do with what happens. This is where our true freedom lies, the ability to choose our response to life's challenges. It is easy to feel powerless when the world seems to close in around us, when everything seems lost. But true freedom is not the absence of suffering. It is the ability to choose how we meet it. It is the realization that we are not victims of our circumstances, but masters of our own responses. This freedom, this radical autonomy, is the cornerstone of Frankl's philosophy, and it is the one thing that no external force can ever take from us. No tyrant, no oppressor, no institution can ever strip us of our ability to choose our attitude. This, he realized, is the only true freedom. The freedom to choose one's response, no matter the circumstances. And in that choice, we find our deepest power. When Frankl observed the behavior of his fellow prisoners, he noted something remarkable. In the most dire situations, some of the prisoners gave in to despair and hopelessness, while others found a reason to endure, to fight, to survive. What made the difference? It was not their circumstances. It was not their physical strength. It was their ability to find meaning in the midst of suffering. Those who found a reason to live, no matter how small, were the ones who endured. And in their endurance, they transcended their circumstances. The same is true for us. In our own lives, we are constantly faced with suffering. It may not be as extreme as what Frankl endured, but it is suffering nonetheless. The question we must ask ourselves is this: will we allow it to define us? Will we surrender to the darkness, or will we choose to find meaning in the struggle? Will we choose to rise, not despite our suffering, but because of it? It is easy to think of suffering as something to be avoided, something to be feared. But Frankl teaches us that it is not the suffering that defines us, it is how we respond to it. We can choose to find meaning in the smallest of moments, in the smallest of struggles. And in that choice, we can transcend the pain, the fear, the despair, and become more than we were before. This is the freedom that no prison can take away, the freedom to choose our attitude, our response, our meaning. It is a freedom that lies within us all, waiting to be realized. and once we realize it, nothing can hold us back. The search for meaning is not an abstract concept or a lofty ideal. It is a profound, existential truth that touches the very core of who we are as human beings. It transcends the boundaries of religion, culture, and circumstance, reaching into the very depths of the human experience. Meaning is not something given to us. It is something we must discover, something we must create in the face of suffering, loss, and hardship. What Frankl understood, in the midst of his own suffering, was that meaning is not a luxury for the fortunate, it is a necessity for survival. In the absence of meaning, despair takes root. Without a sense of purpose, the soul withers. And yet, meaning is always within reach. It may be hidden beneath layers of pain, buried under the weight of trauma, but it is there, waiting to be uncovered. The key is to look within and ask the question, what is the purpose of this suffering? What can I learn from this moment? How can I grow through this challenge? In the darkest times, when it seems as though the world has abandoned us, this is when we must search the deepest for meaning. It is easy to find meaning in moments of joy and comfort, but it is in the moments of pain and hardship that meaning becomes truly transformative. Frankl's journey taught him this, that in the deepest depths of suffering, we can still find meaning if we choose to look for it. It is not the absence of pain that gives life meaning. It is the presence of purpose, even in the midst of that pain. But this search for meaning is not passive. It is an active pursuit, a constant struggle to rise above the darkness, to find purpose in the chaos. It requires responsibility. Frankl often spoke of the importance of responsibility, of our ability to take ownership of our own lives, no matter the circumstances. We are responsible for the meaning we give to our lives. We are responsible for the choices we make in response to the suffering we encounter. This responsibility is not a burden. It is a gift. It is the gift of freedom, the freedom to choose our attitude, our response, and our path. When Frankl was in the camps, he witnessed the profound power of choice in shaping human experience. Some prisoners, despite the unspeakable conditions, chose to find meaning in their suffering. They found solace in the love they had for their families, in the memory of a beautiful sunset, in the hope that one day they might be free again. Others, however, succumbed to despair, choosing to see their suffering as meaningless, their lives as pointless. The difference was not in their circumstances, it was in their response. And this, Frankl realized, is where true freedom lies. Freedom, then, is not the absence of suffering or the ability to escape pain. Freedom is found in the ability to choose how we respond to the suffering that life inevitably brings. It is the choice to find meaning in every moment, even in the darkest times. This is the true essence of Viktor Frankl's message, that even in the most extreme circumstances, we retain the power to choose our attitude, to choose our purpose, and to choose our path. And in that choice, we are liberated. But what does it mean to choose our path? To take responsibility for the meaning we create in our lives? It means acknowledging that life is not something that happens to us. It is something that we actively shape. It means understanding that we are not passive victims of fate, but active participants in the creation of our own destinies. This is not to say that suffering is something we should seek out or embrace with joy. Suffering is painful, it is devastating, and it is often beyond our control. But what we can control is how we face it. We can choose to surrender to it, to allow it to consume us, or we can choose to face it with courage, with hope, and with a search for meaning. The choice is ours. This is the power that no prison can take away, the power to choose how we respond to the world around us, no matter how bleak, no matter how hopeless. In the darkest of times, we can still find meaning, and in that meaning, we find the strength to endure. The freedom that Frankl discovered, the freedom that he lived by, is a freedom that belongs to all of us. It is a freedom that exists not in the absence of suffering, but in our response to it. And when we embrace this freedom, when we choose meaning over despair, we transcend the pain, and we rise to become more than we were before.